The great Richard Gere is here.
Oh, great.
Richard, Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is one of my first podcasts. I think it might be.
Congratulations. I'm honored that this would be the one.
This is number one.
When I saw O Canada, I was wondering, have you and Paul Schrader been in touch over the years since you worked together so many years ago?
Yeah, no, we talk once in a while, and he's always writing, so there's always an idea there. And we run into each other. I actually, before we made this film, I ran into him. He was being feted for one of his films, which was terrific. It was either his last film before this or the one before that, I forget. And, we started kind of talking again, and then this script came. And I didn't know the book. And Russell Banks, obviously, is an author that almost everyone has read something of Russell's work. And his books have made terrific films. So
Paul made one from one of his books?
Yeah, he made a terrific one. It's one of my favorite of his. And so anyhow, Paul had written a really wonderful script. For me, it was a no-brainer. It was my dad had passed away just before he sent me the script, and he was 1 month shy of 101.
Wow.
And he was living with me. But I saw this, he was quite there. He was present, but things became blurred and kind of contrapuntal. That time didn't really mean anything anymore. And there were images. He remembered things. We could have cogent, emotional conversations. And he remembered where everyone was at emotionally and what their narrative was, what their story was. But his own background became present and future and past were all kind of mixed up.
So this seemed appealing in some way to try to
I thought
work
this
through
was
that?
really something for me to play with and kind of work through my own emotions of watching him pass away.
I'm curious, how had Paul changed as a filmmaker since you guys did American Gigolo? It's so long ago. He's made so many films. You've made so many films.
Yeah, we were trying to figure it out. I think it was 45 years ago.
Yeah.
We worked together. And, Paul's got his groove now. He's got his thing. The talent and the drive are still there, but I think he very much knows his niche now. And he writes to what his expectation of his budget.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows it's a 90-page script or whatever. And he knows what that's going to cost. And he's pretty much designed and directed the movie when he writes it.
How do you feel in terms of working on a big production versus a more modest production like this? Do you feel more comfortable when it's a smaller crew and you know that it's a 90-page script, or do you like to be on a big set and is there any difference for you as a performer?
I like the movement of indie filmmaking. The last, I have to count, 5, 10 movies of mine have all been very small budgets with wonderful directors, but challenging scripts that never would be made by a studio now, ever. And but I like that. I like the motion of that. I like you're on your feet, you're on your toes, not back on your heels all the time.
Right. I was wondering if you felt like, or if you and Paul discussed O Canada being a kind of demythologizing of the Julian character from American Gigolo, or sort of like taking a Lothario type. You didn't?
No, but he said other people will be.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the things he liked about us doing this together is that there is some kind of a connection there, some meta connection of Paul and me and the character and us both at older stages of our lives now and at that stage of telling stories of what it was like in the beginning.
So my reading of this movie, tell me if you agree with this at all. And I don't know if you feel sort of incorporated into this idea, but it's like a very venerated, celebrated person who's looking back on his life and saying, like, do not celebrate me. I've done a lot of terrible things. I'm a very flawed person. I'm a very confused person at this stage because of what I'm enduring. Don't overstate what I've accomplished. I feel like Paul has this complicated relationship to that, to being a great celebrated artist, but also a person who's very flawed. And I don't know how you feel about being accomplished and celebrated for those accomplishments at this stage of your life. Do you like it when you were given awards at this stage of your career and they look back and they show you your old movies? Or would you rather not think about those things?
I don't lean into it. But if people, they want to say nice things and express kindness and love towards me, of course, why not?
I don't know. Some people feel discomfort with even just being forced to look back at certain things, I guess.
Well, I don't take it all that seriously.
Mm.
But look, every time there's a film festival does something for me and they do their compilation of my career, it's always kind of amazing and weird to me and delightful at the same time of seeing my life edited through someone else's idea of my life.
Yeah.
Because they're editing even what they choose in each of the films. What was interesting to that editor is going to be different person to person. But, a lot of this stuff I forget. There are scenes that they'll pick out and put in a film that I forgot I shot that and I forgot that moment, and I'll be flooded with memories. Paul and I talked a lot about Krapp's last tape, which was my brain is gone. Irish writer. He also did Waiting for Godot. Who's that?
Yeah.
We're all brain damaged here.
I'm also blanking.
Okay, well, anyhow, what is it? It's a story about a guy in a room, and he's been making tapes his entire life, kind of narrating his story. And it's someone sitting in a room, going to the old tapes and playing them, and reacquainting himself with a version of his past. And I think what Paul and I are playing with here is, I'm not so sure the facts are really the story. And if they are the story, they're irrelevant anyhow, because they're not an experience. Facts are not an experience. We deal in the realm of emotions and how we feel about things, how we feel about an experience. And that's what this character, Leonard Fife, is going through. He accepted the moment of telling his story, no interest, as we get right in the beginning, of telling the story that he's expected to tell of a filmmaker. He's telling the story of a man. And he's saying things that have been difficult to say. And as he said, if the camera was not on, he wouldn't be able to say it.
Right.
He has to be honest, or his version of being honest, because the camera is on and his wife is there listening.
There's a choice made in the movie that I think is really interesting. I was wondering if you feel similarly in your life through this, which is there are moments that are rendered that are the Jacob Elordi version of Leonard Fife, and then you appear in the frame. You are the present day Leonard Fife is appearing in this historical context. And that's sort of the only, I connected to that idea because I can only see my present self in my past experience. And I assume that was in the script, but I'm curious kind of how you talked through that and how, if you feel similarly about going through your memories.
It's easier, I found it easier to relate to who I was. I can't imagine myself being a 75-year-old man. That's kind of like, what? How did that happen? So I sometimes see myself in the mirror and wonder who that is. Do you remember the end of 2001?
Sure, in the bedroom.
When it starts to go crazy at the end.
Yeah.
As I get older, that I understand that. I mean, really understand it. Not just, wow, but no, I get that.
It's mystifying when you're young, though, to watch that movie because you have no relationship.
Equally fascinating to me.
Yeah.
What that ending was, but I feel it viscerally now.
Huh. So you felt like you were tapping into some of that sensation for this.
I think so. The childhood memories and end of life memories and projections are all in the same fabric.
Mm. What about the acting style into that Interrotron-esque camera? That's pretty unusual as an actor to be asked to go into camera in the way that Leonard is because of this kind of documentary that's being made about him. Do you think much about like the performance style and how, as opposed to playing off of someone specifically, or you're in close-up for extended periods of time delivering dialogue?
Yeah, I can't remember. We had, I was, as is true to the technique, the Errol Morris technique, you do see someone.
Mm-hmm. Was it Michael that you were seeing?
I was seeing Michael, and then I had the idea. I said, look, he's doing it for her, for his wife, for Uma. I said, Paul, don't you think you should get her into it so he can talk directly to her?
Mm.
And he thought that was a good idea. So we fashioned a way to get her. I insisted. I said, I don't want to talk to you anymore, Michael.
Right.
I don't even like you. I want to talk to my wife. And he acquiesces to that, and she moves over. So I am speaking directly to her. Mm-hmm. It's just the viewer doesn't see that.
Right. Yeah, it struck me as an unusual way of seeing you perform. You just very rarely see an actor, a movie star, into camera saying
There's another film that we just completed, and it's actually on the Dalai Lama. And it's this footage that was done by these Swiss filmmakers. It was pre-COVID, and they used the same technique. And His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, is looking right into the camera. Huh. And it's extraordinary. Someone that developed, but to be able, it's like you're having a private teaching with him, seeing directly into his intent. Mm-hmm. It's not peripheral. It's directly. And again, someone that developed, you're getting it. Now, this character and this actor, Richard Gere, are not of that quality, but you get, so there is something about looking directly into a lens that, as a viewer, it touches you in a different place, psychologically, emotionally.
It's I'm obsessed with Errol's movies, and it's one of the reasons why I sort of like, even if people are lying, the camera cannot lie specifically in that context when you're forced to look down the barrel. So I thought that was just such a great stroke of inspiration for this movie. I was wondering about you and Jacob. Jacob is kind of at this phase that you were once at.
We had no idea, by the way,
that he was going to be in that because of when you made this.
No, I kind of like the radar was he's one of the young actors who was terrific. And Paul gave me a list of possible actors who could play me. So, of course, we talked about it. I went and looked at one of his things. He said, look, he's really good. He's striking. He's got some magic about him. But we didn't know that he was going to, like there's one day I was not shooting there, but they said 500 girls showed up. And it was like, everyone was like, whoa, what is going on here? So Paul and I kind of lucked into having this kid in the movie who's wonderful in the film, but he's also a really nice kid.
Yeah.
He's really a sweetheart.
Does he want advice from you? Do you have advice for him? It is striking actually how similar the sort of like arc of simultaneously, being identified very early on as a very, very talented actor, but a beautiful kind of rising star. And there's a mirror there.
It was later for me. And there'd been a lot of theater work, and I had done regional theater in New York and London, and I feel like I'd been around a lot before I was even pointed towards making movies.
And his is happening more fast.
That happens anymore. It kind of happens really quick before actors are able to kind of explore themselves more before they're out there.
You think that's a good or a bad thing?
I tend to think it's a challenge that maybe can destroy people.
Mm-hmm. Did you have?
I think it's healthier to wait. And I was in my late 20s when it started to happen.
Was your hope that it would happen faster back then? Do you remember?
No.
You were
I was really happy doing theater. In fact, I might have had a chip in my shoulder about movies as being,
Yeah, you hear that sometimes. That's not the real acting, the movie acting.
Yeah.
You miss the theater?
No.
It's very hard.
No, the last piece that I did was over 40 years ago.
Wow.
In fact, it was right after, I think it was right after I did Gigolo with Paul. And I must say that doing a long run, I don't know that I have the muscle for that. I get tired of the repetition, and there's a lot of repetition in filmmaking. All the different angles, and you end up saying a line or a sequence 50 to 100 times, and by the end of that, your brain is kind of fluid.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think I'm more built for making films.
I was thinking about your career, which is now almost 50 years long. You've worked with...
Longer.
Well, I guess if you include the theater as well.
19, so that's 56 years. Yeah, 56 years.
As a person obsessed with movies, I think of the movie as the beginning of the career. But Malick, Coppola, Lumet, Altman, Schrader, many of the legendary figures of that time.
I was talking to my son about this, and my son is beginning a career himself as an actor, and that which came out of nowhere. He had no interest, and then started fooling around at school and realizing, wow, this is really fun, which it is. It's really fun, and it's play. I said, look, I was really, partly was my choice, is that I was smart enough to know that I wanted to work with really good directors. But also, the opportunities presented themselves, and I took advantage of that. So really, all of my early films were some of the very best directors around.
Yeah, looking at the filmography, I noticed like a real lack of cynicism in all the choices that you're making. There's not a lot of, you're not trying to cash in at any time. I really admire that.
No, if anything, it was probably the opposite. When things got too big, I kind of pulled way back and did some obviously uncommercial projects that would probably obfuscate, what I was.
Was that because of a sense of fear or concern about?
I think I just wanted to get out of it.
Really?
Yeah, it was too much.
You feel like that was a good choice looking back on it now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There certainly were periods where maybe I had less opportunities because my movies were not making that kind of money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like to have the opportunities, like all of us, everyone in this, the three of us in this room right now.
I don't think our opportunities are quite the same as yours, but we're trying.
No, but whatever you choose, you want to be moving into a position of, working with the best, doing the best, having the most fun.
Mm-hmm. Is there a great filmmaker you'd always wanted to work with and it never worked out?
Well, there have been a lot. I can't remember one, kind of going, I'm going to hold my breath and
right.
die unless I work with that.
No white whale. So having been through the business for this many years, do you have a sense of the health of movies? It's an ongoing discussion on this show about if this is all going to be okay, if this art form.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a dinosaur, so, I don't know.
Do you care?
Yeah, I do care, because I think I remember in New York that it was a deep part of who everyone was going to the movies together and having that communal experience. And if there was a new Bergman or a Truffaut or a Kurosawa or a Fellini or Antonioni or whatever, it's like you just waited for that moment and you were in line for the first showing. And I don't know that happens. And if it is, it's for kind of a popcorn movie, which, is fine, but it's a sugar experience.
Yeah.
That in the 60s and 70s, it was nurturing. It made you think, it made you feel, challenge how you saw the universe, how you saw yourself and others. I'm not sure that that's happening.
What about your kids? You mentioned your son is pursuing acting. Like, did you give movies to them? Did they reject it because of your career in any way?
No, I mean, my son, he's very thankful that, when I would put him to sleep at night, we would often sit and watch Turner Classic Movies.
Mhm.
So he, from very early age, he's watching black and white films when there was this incredible mix of entertainment, but of literature.
Mm-hmm.
And the language of film was evolving, was becoming itself at that point. And he realizes now that it just became part of his DNA. He understands that.
Is there a film in your career that you think is misunderstood or underrated, or something that you think people should go back to and take a look at? Because you should
talk to my friend Jonathan Cott, because he has several of those.
Oh, yeah?
That he brings up all the time.
Is there an example of one? Like, I was thinking about Yanks
Mr.
recently.
Jones was one.
Oh, interesting. I haven't seen that in some
about
time.
an extreme bipolar guy.
Yeah.
He thinks that was completely off the radar, never should have been. It should have been seen.
Interesting.
And appreciated for what it was. And it was a film I did a few years ago called Norman,
Mm-hmm.
which, was a small movie with a small release that probably not enough people saw. Joseph Cedar, a wonderful Israeli director, directed that. And Orrin Moverman produced that, who I've done, I think, 5 or 6 movies with now.
Right.
The Hoax, my friend brings up a lot too.
I love The Hoax.
I thought The Hoax also was a really good film.
That's
There's an
a great
Altman film, what was it called? Dr. T and the Women.
I just watched it the other day.
I remember Bob saying to me, I said, it's the best I can do. What do they want from me?
They were hard on that one.
What do they want?
Yeah. It feels very much like a Robert Altman film. It's not any different than any of the 70s movies, the way that it works. That's a fun movie.
It is a fun movie. I don't think the last sequence is a young woman giving birth, and it's in close-up.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine, especially all the Catholic countries wanted the scene out. But Bob and I talked about it. I said, the movie doesn't work unless that's there.
Right.
It actually is, it's the magic of that is the magic of the film, is that we are inventing and creating our universe all the time in kind of unimaginable ways. And he refused to take it out. So we didn't have release in a lot of Catholic countries.
That's so strange. That's a really interesting movie. That's a good example of a movie that people should go back to and take a look at, maybe reconsider. You took a break between 17 and 23 from making any movies. I as a casual observer, was like, oh, I guess Richard Gere's he's retired, or he's not going to make movies anymore. Was that
from when?
From 2017 to 2023. No real films released at that time. Was that
I don't know. I have to look up. I don't feel like I've.
Nothing purposeful about that.
I think there were films.
Yeah?
Look it up. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so.
5 years without making a movie?
Yeah, unless some stuff was sitting on the shelf. Yeah. You've got The Dinner and Three Christs in 17, and then Maybe I Do last year, and there's a gap there. I guess maybe you were making movies during that period?
Well, I didn't make any movies during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a 2-year period.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Nothing.
Wasn't any conscious thing other than that.
You think about retiring? Is that something is that even an idea that matters to you?
I keep talking to my wife about it, but she says you can't.
Why? Because you have young kids?
Yeah.
That's funny. I'm curious also, whenever I talk to actors and I say, like, is there a kind of part you'd be curious, like to try to play? They always say, I'd like to do a musical. So there's not as many musicals made, but you've done that. You've done a musical. Is there like a certain kind of a part or like a certain kind of a film you've always wanted to do?
No, I like to do more things with music. I really like, when I came to New York from regional theaters, it was a time of rock operas.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very lucky. I had hair down to my tits, I was going to say. And
you can say it.
And I was in rock bands, and I could play a lot of instruments. I could sing and all that. So I was working immediately. I was very fortunate. And then I didn't do musicals for all these years, and then did Chicago. I'd forgotten how much fun it is.
Yeah. Is there a reason why? Because, you were on Broadway in a musical right before the films in the 70s, right? And then that wasn't really a part of your on-screen persona at all.
No, it's not like I was saying no to it. It just didn't
Never
present.
came up. People didn't know, or did you go up for stuff? Do you remember?
They just weren't happening. I mean, what musicals were happening then?
Yeah. I guess that's true. It is sort of a lost style.
No, but it's also, I probably shouldn't say this, but I didn't really. I was entertained by Chicago on Broadway, but I didn't think it was great.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of like, when it came my way. And I read the script, and the script was brilliant. It was brilliant. Made sense of it as a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And a deeper kind of weird exploration of people.
Yeah.
Especially that woman.
It's a great movie about fame.
Projection. Fame. Who am I? What's real? What is power? I play the cynical guy in it who understands it all and plays it. But it's all literally seen through her. I mean, it's in her eye. It comes out of her eye. And you see her being swept into this dream of, being somebody. I mean, it was very rare. And then with Rob Marshall, who's such a brilliant director.
You're about to do your first U.S. TV series, or you've already shot it.
We shot the first 10 episodes, yeah.
So, I know you did something in the U.K. at some point, but not
did a BBC thing, yeah.
Yeah, but no other television besides that over the years. I assume they must have come to you many times.
I mean, there was a stigma, I guess, about that early on, but that stigma went away years ago.
Mm-hmm. But still, you held out.
The quality was so high in these things. Not everything, but it is higher than most of the movies being made.
Mm-hmm.
And this was, they came to me, and it was a version of a French series called Le Bureau, and a spy thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've seen it. It's very good.
Terrific series. I think it was 6 years or 7 years, something like that, of stuff. And my wife and I were hooked on it. We loved it. One of the few things we could see after the kids went to bed, and we couldn't, we were about ready, but okay. The hour of that was great. That's a great show. And this was put together with terrific actors, Michael Fassbender and Jeffrey Wright. And it just seemed like, okay, that made sense. Plus, I was going to be living in Madrid, and that would be easy to go to London and shoot.
Different at all from making the films?
No, none.
Really?
None. You have a script, you have characters, you have every day you've got to make the scenes work.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone there comes out of movie making. The crews, the same. They come out of movie making.
The trailer, to me, just looks like a movie. Every actor in it is a movie actor. Yeah. It is kind of fascinating.
It was shot with those, it's the biggest set I've ever seen in my life.
Mm.
It's a huge soundstage in London, outside of London. And a bigger budget. I mean, I've been happily making movies $4 million, $5 million, $6 million, and we shoot for 20 or 25 days. I'm fine with that. I'm perfect. That's half an episode on these TV shows.
Yeah. It was a big deal. Richard, we end every episode of this show by asking filmmakers what's the last great thing they've seen.
The last great thing I've seen.
Have you seen, obviously a cinephile.
I have to be honest with you, and this is not self-serving.
Mm-hmm.
This film that we've been editing and we just finished on the Dalai Lama.
Does it have a title?
It's very moving, yeah. It's called The Wisdom of Happiness. And it has footage of His Holiness the Dalai Lama as a child,
mm-hmm.
but takes him through his whole life. The invasion from China.
This is someone you've been friends with for years.
Huh?
This is someone you've been friends with for years, too.
45 years. It's been a teacher of mine. And I was so moved working on it. And we Orrin and I re-edited the entire thing and then found footage, and we did. But I was just, and when we showed it the first time at the Zurich Film Festival last month, and I was just devastated. I found it so moving and so powerful.
The wisdom of happiness.
Yeah.
Richard Gere, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.